I'll bathe you, Mama. As I said those words to her, I really knew that our lives had turned around. She looked up at me, her eyes more dim than I had ever seen them. I'm so embarrassed, she said. Mother, daughter, daughter, mother, everything had turned around. The cold winter in Connecticut in 1991 made our home in Florida seem very inviting to my 81-year-old mother. She had already decided that she wanted to spend the winters in Florida, dividing her time among her 4 children who lived in the warmth of the Sunshine State. My 2 older sisters lived in Central Florida, and an older brother lived 2 hours north of where my husband and I had our home. Mama had perfected a plan whereby she would spend 1 month with each of us. However, there were some problems with her plan. My husband and I worked outside of the home, and Mama couldn't be left alone for any length of time. She needed assistance. She walked with the hesitation of the frail and elderly, and we were afraid that she might fall, and we did not want to give her free rein of the kitchen. What would happen if she burned herself on the stove or accidentally cut herself with a knife? My Florida brother and I talked about what to do. Neither of us had a guest room, so Mama would have to sleep in a makeshift bedroom. I did not know how my other siblings, 2 sisters and 2 brothers, felt about Mama's plan. Due to a family misunderstanding, we had not spoken to each other in almost 3 years. The family feud was about Mama. It was the winter of 1988, and the family was embroiled in conflict over an idea promoted by our youngest brother that Mama should leave her home and go into an adult care facility. The siblings were divided into 2 camps. Most were embracing the idea, but my Florida brother and I were against it. In the end, Mama decided that she wanted to remain in the home that Daddy had built with his own 2 hands. But that did not end the conflict. It festered, an open wound refusing to heal, and for the next 3 years, we cut ourselves off from each other, all smarting from words spoken and unspoken. Words never spoken can be as deadly as those hurled in anger. Broken-hearted over the estrangement of her children, my mother tried to make peace, as she always had done when we were children. With 6 children to care for, my mother had always sought ways to keep the peace. Family conflict was to be kept under control. Consequently, we were expected to keep the peace. We never learned the valuable childhood lessons surrounding the resolution of conflict. Resentments went underground until in 1988, they rose to the surface and shattered the illusory peace of a family once joined together in song around an ancient upright piano in the dining room, and Mama's bountiful Sunday dinners in the warmth of our country kitchen. So, in the winter of 1991, Mama wanted to come south. I felt guilty about trying to discourage her from staying longer than 2 weeks, but I kept trying. Reluctantly, I began to face my ambivalence. Was it really her safety I was concerned about? Or was I just using that as an excuse to save myself an inconvenience? Selfishly thinking of my own needs? Mama was always available to me when I needed her, wasn't she? Was she asking so much? 1 month? Maybe 2? Why was I so afraid? I had lived in Florida, far away from her, for 25 years. We visited back and forth for short visits, and we talked on the phone every week. But now, she wanted to live with me for a month or 2. Now, she needed me. Could I handle it? Mama arrived on a balmy afternoon, her blue overnight bag perched on her lap, wheeled off the airplane by a solicitous flight attendant, and my fears were confirmed. I took her to my home and tried to cope. A new blood pressure medicine had dulled her into a constant state of confusion. She was incontinent at times. Frantically, I contacted her doctor in Connecticut, trying to remedy the medication problem. We went back and forth to the local emergency room so that her blood pressure could be monitored. I was afraid that she would have a stroke, maybe even die, and I was afraid that it would be my fault. Having had no previous experience caring for an elderly person, I resented having to learn on the job with my own mother. Confusion, guilt, sadness, longing, and anger overtook me. The feelings often intersecting, cutting off the love. I did not want this job. My mother was supposed to take care of me. Although I was 48 years old, I still needed her. I wasn't ready to give her up. Trying to accommodate the need for safety, I borrowed a walker from a friend so that Mama would have something to lean on while taking a shower. But she wasn't using it. I soon realized that she was not even bathing herself. I had read somewhere that elderly people were afraid of falling while in the shower. I reasoned that if we addressed that fear, the problem would be solved. One evening, I asked her if she would rather use the larger shower area in the master bath, sure that she would have an easier time getting in and out, and that the walker, which was too large for the smaller shower area that she had been using, would be easier to navigate. She agreed to the new arrangement. Certain that I had solved the problem, I guided her into the shower. But I was not prepared for what would happen next. I had never seen my mother's naked body, and now my first glimpse of the tiny, frail woman who stood shyly before me filled my heart with sadness. I watched in her horror as she struggled to wash herself. She just could not manage it. As she stood in the shower, looking up at me, my mother was only 4'11". I knew that everything had turned around and that she desperately needed me now. I put aside my own fears and longings, and I said gently, "I'll bathe you, Mama." "I'm so embarrassed," she said, avoiding my eyes. "It's okay, Ma," I soothed. "I know that you did this for me when I was a child, and that you wanted me to feel clean and sweet. Now, let me give this back to you." Gently, I cleaned her soft and wrinkled body. I powdered and patted her and primped her. And as her face softened into acceptance, I knew that she felt loved and cared for, and she was. She had become my baby, and I caressed her like I had done with my own babies many years before. Later, my heart breaking, I cried in my husband's arms. I knew that my mother was dying. I knew that the strong woman who had nurtured me was no longer there, and there was no going back. I thought of my own mortality and wondered if my daughter would have to bathe me someday. I became more aware of the changes in my own aging body. There was no going back. I began to grieve for my mother. There were several more baths after that evening, and each time we repeated the tender ritual, my spirit was lifted to a better place. The following year, my mother had a stroke and died in a Connecticut hospital. I now find comfort in the intimate memories of a special time when I was able to nurture my mother as she had lovingly nurtured me. And that has made it easier for me to let her go. And now, as I stand here telling you my story, I am 2 years older than my mother was when I bathed her. And I am blessed with a loving daughter. It has come full circle.